These coasters are the absolute perfect gift for that wedding coming up, or your parents' anniversary, or a friend's birthday, a bridal shower, you name it. The recipient is going to be stunned. They are personalized, they are beautiful, and they are not anything you can just run to the store and pick up. After this half-hour tutorial, you are going to know exactly how to make these coasters from start to finish. I'll lay out all my tips and tricks. And the best part is that you can do this project in any color scheme with any initials or symbol in the center. So if you want to learn how to make this beautiful luxury personalized set of coasters, this video is for you. Let's get started. First, let's go over all the supplies and the tools that you need to make this project. I'll show you exactly what I'm using, but of course you can switch up different colors, different coaster shapes, etc. So we're going to be using these nitrile gloves. I think they are better than latex or plastic when working with resin. Our safety equipment, we have a respirator mask and also some eye protection. Rubbing alcohol and paper towels nearby for cleaning things up. And I did prepare the coaster molds by wiping them with the alcohol and also using tape as kind of a lint roller to get the dust off. The inspiration for the design of these coasters comes from the wedding invitation for the couple. The coaster set is a commission for one of the guests at the wedding who is going to be presenting this to the bride and the groom. So we picked out colors based on their invitation and also on the registry based on what the colors they're going to have in their home. So we have a seafoam green, a lighter green, and then we have this yellow and some white. I'm trying to match it there to the invitation because if I go by their invitation, I know it's going to be something they like. We are going to achieve the green with a mix of 3 different mica powders. For the white, we're using Armor Art resin pigment and also a pearl mica powder. And then for the yellow, we're using a combination of 2 different Amsterdam paints, and I will list the exact colors in the description. You need something to mix the resin in. This can be plastic, this can be silicone containers, glass jars, whatever you have on hand. We're using these wooden craft sticks. You can also use silicone mixing sticks if you have them. I'm going to be using a heat gun for some blending. And also some rubbing alcohol in a little spray bottle. Then I have these really pretty stickers from Hobby Lobby. We might put these on as well, and some gold leaf markers. We have crushed glass that you can pick up at Michael's craft store in their plant section, and we've got everything we need, so we are ready to go. Let's just set out all our cups here so we have everything ready for us. And you can use that handy rubbing alcohol with paper towels to wipe out the cups and make sure there's no dust. The resin I will be using is by Counterculture. It's called their Artist Resin. This can be substituted with any resin of your choice. And we are ready to go. We begin by preparing our resin. I'm pouring part A into 1 cup and part B into the other cup. And making sure there is an equal amount. I just get down at eye level and eyeball it so there's an equal amount of both. Now one of these parts is thicker than the other, so I did give it a water bath in the sink beforehand. I just set it in a sink of warm water for 10 or 15 minutes or so, and it actually makes the substance more fluid and easier to work with. Rubbing alcohol on a paper towel is so handy to keep nearby and clean up all the sticky stuff. And before we start mixing, I'm going to make sure we have some music or something fun to listen to because we have a few minutes now of some boring mixing. Then I'm pouring both part A and part B into a separate container, scraping the sides with a craft stick so we get all of it and the 2 amounts are even. It helps to pour slowly so you're not causing a lot of bubbles. Okay, let's mix. Now we're going to check our time and note what time we start, and we're going to mix. Usually I go for at least 5 or 6 minutes just to make sure everything's really incorporated. My resin's going to be very clear and it's going to cure very hard. I'm scraping the sides as I go and scraping the bottom just to make sure, again, I'm incorporating everything. And it looks like I'm mixing fast, but that's because the video is sped up. I'm actually mixing quite slow and measured, and that's going to reduce our amount of bubbles as well in the resin. You're going to get some, but you just want to try to reduce that amount so it's less to get out at the end. When you're done mixing, here's a little trick. I got a warm container of water and I'm setting my mixed up resin in that just to sit for 5 or 10 minutes or so. And that warm water is gonna just slightly warm the resin and cause a lot of those air bubbles to rise to the surface, which I can then pop before I go on to put the resin onto my project. So now we can give that resin a little spritz with the rubbing alcohol or a little torch, just to pop the air bubbles that have risen to the surface for us while it's been sitting. And then we're gonna separate it out into our mixing cups. In case you're new to working with resin, I have a resin safety video that I would really recommend that you watch. I'll put it up in the upper right-hand corner there. Watch that before you get started. But if you've used resin before, you know that we have now about a 45-minute working window. So we're not gonna waste any time in mixing up our different colors. For our white, we're going to use a little bit of off-white called parchment paper craft paint because I didn't want it to be stark white. We'll accompany that with our Armor Art white pigment and a little bit of this white pearl mica powder to make it shimmery. For our yellow, I'm mixing these 2 Amsterdams, just a true yellow and a medium yellow. And for our green, I've got the 3 different mica powders, green pearl, black sea, and pistachio. And you just need a pinch of each. And with the paint, just a little squeeze. You can always add more, but just start with a little bit. These are small amounts that we're mixing up. The white looked a little bit too much on the off-white yellowy side, so I added a little bit more of the white pigment paste by Armor Art. That brightened it up a little bit. The yellows I thought were just a little bit too drastic, so I wanted to tone them down with some white in there just to make them a little more pastel looking. Everything on the invitation was very subtle, so I want these colors to be subtle as well. And I'm adjusting the different mica powders till I get the right kind of green. Colors are now mixed and ready to pour on our coasters, and I'm giving one last spritz with the alcohol because the air bubbles continue to emerge, making sure my coaster molds are very clean. By the way, you can get lots of different shapes of molds. I'll link the ones I'm using from Amazon below. So the pattern I'm pouring in, I think, works really well if we want something in the center of our coasters, which we're going to do the monogram this time. So we're starting with a ring of the white around the outside, and we're going to continue to ring the colors inward on the coaster, ending with clear in the center. Next, take the heat gun and we're going to blend those colors out really well so there's a beautiful transition in between each of them. The heat gun also pops tons of your air bubbles and just really does beautiful blending techniques. The set of 4 coasters that we just poured is going to be the commissioned wedding gift. But I had these other 4 coasters set out because I knew I would probably have quite a bit of extra resin and I didn't want that to go to waste. And I also like doing a big batch of coasters at once just to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. So these other 4 will be in a separate set, which I can put in my inventory and then sell later on. I'm not going to do the monograms on these ones, so they can be for anybody. That's basically it for the first layer. Now we're just going to babysit these for a little while. We're picking out any particles we see in the surface, examine the surface in different angles in the light, popping air bubbles, blending a little bit more. Just watch those air bubbles continue to rise. We're going to try to get as many out as we can, and just making sure our surface is really smooth. To pick stuff out of the resin, I use an unfolded paper clip. It works great. You can also use a little tweezers or even a needle. And at this point, we can go ahead and clean up our area, throw away any trash, wipe out any silicone mixing cups that we're saving. Use your alcohol and your paper towel again to clean out your tools, any silicone mixing sticks. Clean them out right away because it's a lot harder once the resin is set. Finally, cover your project in some way while this first layer is going to be curing. I'm just using a canvas propped up on some plastic cups. And we're going to wait about 24 hours or just come back the next day and do the second layer on these. Here we are, day 2. This is your second and final session working on these coasters. They are hard to the touch. They're not completely cured. They need 72 hours to cure, but they are hard, so we can go ahead and do our monogramming and put our second layer of resin on these. There are a few different ways you can do the monogramming. First, I'll show you what I'm doing, and then I'll tell you the other 3 ways that I know of. In this instance, I'm using a fine tip gold leaf marker to freehand the initials J and S, the first initials of their names on these coasters. The second way you could do this is by using a stencil, and then you could do gold leaf marker over the stencil to put on your letters. The best gold leaf markers I've found are Deco color. You can buy them off Amazon. You can even get them at Walmart, but they have the shiniest gold. The third way you could do this is also with a stencil or freehand. Put your adhesive down and lay composition gold leaf. Composition gold leaf is the most beautiful, beautiful shine. And then the fourth way I know of is by using something like a Cricut, where you print out and cut out the letters that you want to use and just stick them on the coasters. So I'm happy with the design I've come up with, and I put a sheet of plastic over the coaster to kind of test it out so I'm not doing my first try on the coaster and messing it up. And I'm doing these freehand letters based off of the font on their invitation, so I'm copying that. This is what it looks like so far. I like it. Take your time on this part. I'm going to go ahead and do the rest of the lettering. Making sure these are dry so we aren't smudging our beautiful letters. Just carefully place any, if you're doing stickers like I am, just carefully place those embellishments on. And you have to be careful with fingerprints, especially if your resin coasters aren't completely cured yet. So I like to use just the plastic sheet the stickers are on to press them down, and even use my nail. And using that plastic sheet over the sticker, I use my nail and kind of press the sticker down so you can't see any of the clear part of the sticker around. You can't even tell it's a sticker. Just make sure all the little air bubbles are out. So this is what they look like so far. I think they're really matching well with the style and colors on the wedding invitation. If you like them so far, give this video a thumbs up, and in the comments let me know what color scheme you're planning on for your coasters. Let's finish these off with our final layer of resin and seal the deal. In preparation of that, I'm adding the crushed glass before I add the resin. This allows us to place it in the exact way that we want on the coasters and avoid spending that extra time doing that after we've mixed up our resin. For this project, we're using 2 different types of crushed glass. The first one is clear with one side tinted gold. The second one is a very light seafoam green, which is going to really enhance our color scheme and also add some extra interest and depth. It's up to you where you want to position the crushed glass on your coasters. Sometimes I go all the way around, and this time I'm doing just the one side. Just want to keep in mind to leave the center free, enough smooth space in the center for someone to set their glass. We are pouring resin over this, but it's not going to completely cover the tops of the crushed glass, so it's going to stand out and be textured on the surface. So just leave enough smooth space for a glass to set. There's that water bath I was telling you about. We're warming up that thicker part of the resin so it's easier to mix. Got our 2 cups and then our bigger yogurt container for mixing the 2 parts together. This time it's going to be really simple this way around because we are only using clear resin and not mixing all the colors in. Oops, I lied. Actually, we are going to use just a smidgen of color, but it'll be very minute. By the way, the amounts of resin I'm using are about 7 to 8 ounces in each of these mixing cups, making for a total amount of about 14 to 16 ounces of resin, which, since I'm doing 8 coasters, turns out to be a couple of ounces for each coaster, and that's for each layer. But it depends, you can have thicker or thinner layers kind of depending on how much resin you end up with. After 5 or 6 minutes of mixing this, I've put it again in the warm water container, and I've made an executive decision. The coasters are, the predominant color coming out is the yellow, and I want to see a little bit more of the green. So we separated a bit of the resin out, and I'm going to mix it up with that very light shade of green. And we're going to add this kind of as a tint to our top layer just to give the overall coaster a little bit more of a green tint. Carefully fill up your coasters just to the top with that beautiful transparent top coat, making sure it gets all the way to the sides around the crushed glass area, and enjoy the relaxing pouring, which is such a therapeutic and addictive part of fluid art. Here they are all poured, and all that's left is, the drill, babysit them a little while. We're going to pop air bubbles with the heat gun. You might have seen me move the torch quickly over these. I only torch the very center of resin that's in these silicone molds. If I use the torch on them, it usually glues the resin to the mold, and then it rips the molds trying to get it out. So don't recommend using the torch on molds to pop the bubbles, only if you're doing it just one little blast in the very center. Now I'm adding more of the green just on the crushed glass area, right around the edge, and blending that in. I used what I had left of the clear and the green resin on the other 4 coasters. Now it's time to say good night to these, and we will unmold them in the morning. Doing a quick little cleanup of the area. It's always refreshing to come down and work in a space that I didn't leave a complete mess the time before. Just get everything put away because we are done with this project. All we have left is the fun part, which is unveiling the finished product when it's all hardened and cured. Well, thank you so much for coming alongside me as we made these coasters. I cannot wait to show you in just a minute the finished result and these coasters unveiled in all their glory. If this tutorial was helpful for you, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you would like to see more videos like this. beautiful, so delicate and exquisite. Be careful if you're taking these out just 24 hours later, as you can still leave some fingerprints, or if you set something heavy on them, it might make an indent. 72 hours after pouring, they will be completely hard cure, ready to pack, ship, gift, and everything. Each one is unique, and that's something I love about handmade gifts. They are personal and irreplicable, and that makes them valuable too, and extra special for gifting. Let's have a little fun staging these, and we'll bring them out so we can see them sparkle in the sunlight. And if you enjoyed this tutorial, you're going to love another coaster tutorial, which I will put right here on the screen for you. And it may also give you inspiration if you want a different color scheme. This one is on the little bit more of the blue side. What do you think? Let me know in the comments, leave a thumbs up, and I can't wait to see the set that you create.